And President William Ruto this morning assented to the Kenya Kwanza's debut supplementary budget, slashing the budget for the financial year by a marginal 2.4 billion shillings, deflating hopes of a bold expenditure rationalisation statement in his first budget. Nonetheless, the president went against the recommendations of both the National Treasury and the National Assembly, which had proposed the budget for the current financial year be increased by 9.3 billion and 14.1 billion shillings respectively. Julian's Amboko now breaks down the numbers for us.
I invite the President-elect to come forward and receive his certificate.
The Kenya Kwanza government rose to power on the bold promise of fiscal consolidation and an end to wanton expenditure, which has left the economy reeling under a pile of debt now at a staggering 9.14 trillion shillings. The gulf between rhetoric and reality seems wide now following President William Ruto's assent of the government's debut supplementary budget, which slashes the current financial year's spending by 2.4 billion shillings, a marginal 0.07% slash from the budget tabled by former Treasury CS Okuretani in April 2022 and passed 2 months later. In the supplementary budget, development spending has been reduced by 97.2 billion shillings, while recurrent spending has been increased by 94.81 billion shillings. The increase in recurrent spending is necessitated by the pending bills baggage that the government is dealing with. Key beneficiaries of the supplementary budget include the Hustler Fund, which has been allocated 12 billion shillings, oil marketing companies whose fuel subsidy arrears have been allocated an extra 41.7 billion shillings, drought mitigation efforts, which have been allocated a 60% increase through the State Department for Arid and Semi-Arid Lands to 16.7 billion shillings. And finally, basic education, which is gobbling up an extra 17.6 billion shillings to cater for the provisions of the capitation for students entering junior secondary school, among other needs. Some of the losers in the supplementary budget include the Ministry of Health, whose budget is being slashed by 9 billion shillings to 113.5 billion, and the State Department for Infrastructure, whose budget has been trimmed by 47.3 billion shillings over suspended construction of roads and bridges, as well as suspended rehabilitation of roads to the tune of 21.5 billion shillings. In the supplementary budget, the government has slashed domestic borrowing from the present 582 billion shillings to 416 billion shillings. The government has, on the other hand, increased external borrowing from 281 billion to 379 billion shillings. On a net basis, borrowing has been revised downward by 68 billion shillings. Julian's Amboko, NTV.